Sri Aurobindo's literary and philosophical legacy. Hello and welcome to the discourse. Sri Aurobindo was one of India's most profound philosophers, yogis, poets, and freedom fighters whose contributions spanned literature, spirituality, and nationalist thought. Born in Kolkata on August 15, 1872, he was educated in England at St. Paul's School and King's College, Cambridge, where he excelled in classical literature and Western philosophy. Upon returning to India in 1893, he initially worked in the Baroda State Service before emerging as a radical leader in India's independence movement. However, after a transformative spiritual experience during his imprisonment in the Alipore bomb case in 1908, he shifted his focus from political activism to yoga and metaphysics. Settling in Pondicherry in 1910, he developed integral yoga, a spiritual path aimed at the evolution of human consciousness toward a divine supramental state. His literary and philosophical works, ranging from epic poetry to metaphysical treatises, reflect his vision of a higher human destiny. Alongside his spiritual collaborator, the mother, Mira Alfasa, he founded the Sri Aurobindo Ashram in 1926 and inspired the creation of Auroville, a universal township dedicated to human unity. Sri Aurobindo passed away on December 5, 1950, but his legacy continues to influence spirituality, literature, and philosophy worldwide. Sri Aurobindo's literary contributions, poetry of mysticism and transformation. Sri Aurobindo's literary legacy is vast and multifaceted, spanning poetry, prose, and drama. His works are distinguished by their profound spiritual depth, philosophical richness, and poetic brilliance, establishing him as a monumental figure in Indian English literature. Among his diverse literary output, his poetry stands out as a powerful medium for conveying his visionary insights and mystical experiences. Sri Aurobindo's poetic journey began with Songs to Metila, a collection initially privately circulated and later published in 1923. These early poems, dedicated to his brother Manmohan Ghosh, reveal his lyrical mastery, blending romanticism with spiritual undertones. Through vivid imagery such as gold-crowned blooms to mere fresh grass and leaf with whom each golden sunbeam sinned, he explored themes of love, nature, and divine longing. However, his poetic vision soon expanded beyond these early expressions, evolving into a grander cosmic perspective. His magnum opus Savitri, a legend and a symbol, is an epic spiritual poem spanning over 24,000 lines. Based on the ancient tale of Savitri and Satyavan from the Mahabharata, the poem transcends its mythological roots to become an allegory of the soul's triumph over ignorance and mortality. More than a literary masterpiece, Savitri is a spiritual revelation, encapsulating Sri Aurobindo's vision of humanity's divine destiny. Its mantric verses aim to awaken higher states of consciousness in the reader, embodying his belief in poetry as a transformative force. Beyond Savitri, Sri Aurobindo's poetic works include The Future Poetry, a critical examination of poetry's evolution, where he foresees the emergence of a supramental poetry capable of expressing divine truth. His collected poems bring together shorter yet equally profound compositions, such as Rose of God, A God's Labor, and Shiva. The latter, written in 1927, is a striking depiction of Lord Shiva's cosmic dance, symbolizing destruction and renewal. One interpretation of the poem connects Shiva's dance with the inconscient, the source of all creation, suggesting that even seemingly unconscious matter plays a role in the cosmic dance. A God's Labor, on the other hand, delves into the theme of divine suffering for humanity's spiritual evolution. Sri Aurobindo's philosophical prose, a synthesis of spirituality and practical wisdom. Sri Aurobindo's prose works stand as monumental contributions to both philosophy and spirituality, blending profound metaphysical inquiry with practical guidance for spiritual transformation. Unlike traditional mystics who often dismiss the material world as illusory, Sri Aurobindo presents a dynamic vision of reality, where the divine progressively manifests in life. His writings synthesize Eastern and Western thought, offering a comprehensive framework for understanding consciousness, evolution, and human destiny. Among his most significant works is The Life Divine, a two-volume masterpiece that reconciles Vedantic philosophy with modern evolutionary theory. Here, Sri Aurobindo challenges classical Advaita Vedanta's view of the world as mere illusion or Maya, asserting instead that matter is a field of divine expression. He introduces the concept of supramental consciousness, a future evolutionary stage where humanity will embody divine perfection while fully engaged in earthly life. Complementing this metaphysical vision is the synthesis of yoga, which systematically integrates the four main yoga paths: karma, action, bhakti, devotion, jnana, knowledge, and raja, meditative yoga, into a cohesive spiritual practice called integral yoga. This work provides seekers with a practical roadmap for inner transformation, emphasizing that all aspects of human existence can be spiritualized. In essays on Gita, Sri Aurobindo offers a revolutionary interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita. Moving beyond conventional readings focused on renunciation, he presents the Gita as a guide to spiritualized action, where one can participate in worldly duties while remaining aligned with the divine will. This perspective makes ancient wisdom relevant to modern life, particularly for those seeking spirituality without withdrawal from society. The mother explores the divine feminine principle, or Shakti, as the active force behind cosmic and individual evolution. This devotional yet philosophical work describes how the supreme energy works through various planes of consciousness to uplift humanity, offering a unique bridge between devotional worship and metaphysical understanding. Sri Aurobindo also addressed socio-political evolution in works like The Human Cycle, The Ideal of Human Unity, and The Foundations of Indian Culture. These texts analyze civilizational development through a spiritual lens, proposing that true human unity must emerge from consciousness rather than mere political or economic arrangements. They particularly highlight India's potential role as a spiritual guide to the world, rooted in its ancient wisdom traditions. Sri Aurobindo's prose is distinguished by its clarity, depth, and visionary outlook, making complex spiritual concepts accessible to modern readers. Drama, classical themes with spiritual undertones. Though less known than his poetry and philosophy, Sri Aurobindo's plays such as Vasavadutta, Radugun, and Perseus the Deliverer demonstrate his mastery of dramatic form while infusing classical stories with spiritual symbolism. These works reflect his early fascination with Greek tragedy and Elizabethan drama, later reshaped by his yogic insights. Influences on Sri Aurobindo's thought. Sri Aurobindo's philosophical vision emerged from a remarkable synthesis of diverse intellectual and spiritual traditions, blending Eastern wisdom with Western thought in an unprecedented manner. The foundation of his thinking was deeply rooted in India's ancient spiritual heritage, particularly the Veds and Upanishads, which shaped his conception of Brahma as the ultimate reality and his understanding of consciousness evolution. The Bhagavad Gita's teachings on selfless action profoundly influenced his development of integral yoga, particularly his interpretation of karma yoga as spiritualized action in the world. Additionally, he drew from Tantric philosophy's emphasis on divine energy, Shakti, and the Bhakti's traditions, devotional fervor, creating a unique synthesis that honored multiple paths to spiritual realization. The Western intellectual tradition formed another crucial dimension of Sri Aurobindo's thought. His early education in England immersed him in Greek classics, with Homer and Aeschylus influencing his literary style and dramatic sensibility, while romantic poets like Shelley and Wordsworth shaped his early poetic voice. More significantly, he engaged deeply with Western philosophical and scientific thought, particularly Darwin's evolutionary theory and Bergson's concept of creative evolution. Rather than rejecting these ideas, Sri Aurobindo radically reinterpreted them, expanding biological evolution into a spiritual framework that envisioned consciousness as the driving force behind cosmic development. This innovative integration allowed him to bridge the apparent gap between science and spirituality, creating a philosophy that spoke to both Eastern and Western minds. Sri Aurobindo's nationalist period represents a vital chapter in his intellectual development that continued to influence his later spiritual work. As one of India's most radical independence leaders in the early 20th century, he articulated a vision of Indian nationalism rooted in a spiritual awakening rather than mere political opposition. His fiery writings in Vande Mataram and Karma Yogini presented India's freedom struggle as part of a larger spiritual destiny, where the nation would rediscover its soul and eventually guide humanity's evolution. So this is it for today. We will continue to discuss the history of Indian English literature. Please stay connected with the discourse. Thanks and regards.